Hello, my friend, and welcome to Beyond, the personal growth podcast for the people who are healing beyond their conditioning and beyond the cycles that played out before them. My name is Katelyn, and with 20 years of experience in the field of psychology and human behavior, I am bringing my natural curiosity, expertise, and personal life experiences here for discussions that are guaranteed to be informative, inspiring, and entertaining. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Today we have Katelyn on the podcast. Katelyn, what would you like to create today?
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
I have been a stay-at-home mom for quite a while. And a couple years ago, I bought a business course after 6 months of listening to a free podcast about it. Because I'm a watcher. And I've been kind of dabbling in this online business space for about 2 to 3 years. And I feel like now that I have twins that just entered kindergarten this year, and my son is 9, he's in 3rd grade. And I've always said, once they're in kindergarten, I'm stepping it up. And now we're here. I think there's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on, fear of success. I have the resources. I am super attentive at consumption. I'm a really good student.
Yes.
I will watch all the courses, but the implementation is where I struggle. And I feel like now that I have the time, I've taken a little bit of time to lay out my week and figure out, okay, what days of the week am I working? Because I did take a very part-time job at the school, just 2 days a week, just, socially.
Great.
And a little bit of money.
For sure.
And then what days are my home days? And then I'm like, okay, got that. And now I have these 2 work days. And I'm like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of stuck, and I've done all the things where you're, meditating and becoming your higher self. And okay, I visualize myself helping people and making X amount, and I know I can get there. And I'm not naive into think that I don't have to do something. Like, it's not just you just sit there and let the universe happen to you.
That doesn't work, Katelyn?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
It worked that way. So, but then that type A kind of perfectionistic part of me kicks in. It's like, well, I have to do the right thing. I have to, the joy is not in the journey. The joy is at the outcome.
Yes. Yes.
So that's kind of where I'm at without kind of rambling. I'll let you digest that.
Oh, this is fantastic. And I love that you have a part-time situation as well. I think that creates so much space energetically and mentally for a business to start and get momentum going. So I love that. I'm a big fan of that.
Thank you. Because there was some guilt. Like, it's a substitute lunch lady position. So of course, like, all the preconceptions and stereotypes kicked in and at the end of last year. And I started at the end of last year, and I only worked 2 months. And it was very substitute. It was like, I'll call you when I need you.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed it. I connected with the women. I could see the students in the middle school and the high school. And then they moved me to my son's school, and it was great. He gave me a hug in front of his friends. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And then they asked me to come back. They're like, we'll take you as much as you want. So there's like a second element that I'll just bring up real quick.
Sure.
Is that guilt of like, I could have a full-time job if I wanted it. But like, my heart, that's where my scarcity mindset kicks in. It's like, well, that's a guaranteed paycheck. But I don't want to, I've waited so long to have this time and space to think and do the house projects that bring me joy. I don't want to not do that and take it full time. And then the guilt's like, but they really need my help. But she's been totally cool. She's like, no, we totally get that. Like, you do you, and we'll be grateful for whatever time you can give us. So that's why I settled on 2 days a week. So
yeah. Beautiful. And when you say they really need us, you mean the school?
The lunch program. Like, they're really short staffed, and that element of like, we'll take you whatever you want to give us. And even this morning, actually, she's like, can you work at the elementary school 10:30 to 1:30? And I'm like, I really can't, but I could squeeze it in 10:30 to 12, but I have this call at 1. And I'm like, what am I doing? I said, no, it's not my day.
Yes. Great
and
catch.
I actually had to help my mother-in-law. She's in a situation that she has to downsize. So I'm helping her purge and sell some big pieces of furniture, which also helps me because she gives me a commission. So it's kind of this like, well, I'm doing my other job.
For sure. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I heard. Before I dive in, what kind of business are you looking to create momentum in?
I have a podcast. So I've had the podcast for almost a year. Next month will be a year. I can't believe it.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
great.
you. And it's called More Than a Merchant Mariner's Wife. So my husband has been shipping out in the merchant marine for our entire relationship. We've been
Mm-hmm.
together 18 years and married 11. So he's an engineer. So I was thinking about helping the women in that space in terms of like a membership community or some sort of paid coaching program,
Mm-hmm.
the digital space. But for right now, I'm just pouring into my podcast and really connecting with anybody that I want to talk to. I'm like, it's my podcast. I can talk about whatever I want, but really
For
focusing on
sure.
you are more than just a mother. You're more than just a spouse. You have your own, like, because we have to take care of everything in the house when they're away for long periods of time and kind of helping myself through that. We seek out what we need, right? So I was kind of like losing myself. Like I've been pouring into the kids so long, like what brings me
Mm-hmm.
joy? I don't even know anymore. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's got to be other people like this. And so that's kind of how that started. And I originally started in e-commerce selling jewelry.
Okay.
So my website is Two Gulls and a Buoy, but I'm kind of phasing that out. It's actually ironic. In December, my LLC kind of renews and the Shopify renews. And I'm like, okay, this might be time to switch gears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, I kind of joined another course for digital marketing specifically. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to either do coaching or a course or a
Okay.
membership.
Great. And all of those really fit together pretty well anyways,
Yeah.
right? It's like you could choose one, but all three would work as
Yeah.
well.
I think it's
Okay.
going to be like a stacking,
Sure.
levels, different levels. And I got to
Mm-hmm.
start somewhere. But then my brain is like, we have to do all the things.
Yeah. What are all the things according to your brain?
Just all of those. Plus, my husband also lobsters commercially on the side. So he's like, there's no place to buy X, Y, and Z. Like this guy went out of business and nobody can find it. You should start a business with that. And then
Mm,
my mother-in-law was like, you're really good at decluttering. You could help people. So I have all these ideas, but that's the
yes.
entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yes. What is your reason why for starting a business? Because you just listed 4 or 5 opportunities, different opportunities and different businesses and different
Right.
business models to create
Right.
money. So what is your why for getting into business?
Um, At the core of it, I love my freedom. I love being a mom. I love having time with my husband. He travels so much. So, time together is really precious. When I did work full time, we made the best of it. He got his downtime when we hung out together on the weekends. But then when we had kids, we all know how that goes.
Yeah.
I think time, freedom, and also being able to help people that I know are struggling that I can actually help because I'm a little bit further ahead in the journey.
Hmm.
And I don't want them to struggle their way through. And if I have something to offer from my experience, why not try to help them?
Hmm. Okay, great. So to be of service and to be able to create your own schedule. Am I hearing
Yeah.
that accurately?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about making money?
I mean, that's there, obviously. I definitely want to make money. I think it comes with a lot of old, I want to say, you know what I'm trying to say. Old thoughts and old preconceptions about
Mm,
scarcity mindset from when I was a
mhm.
child. So I think there's an element of I want to make money to contribute to the family, but I also want to be self-sufficient and have my own funds because right now my husband's the only person,
Yep.
that's kind of partly why I started this job. Obviously, I would love to have this be a very successful six-figure business that I could retire my husband. That's another why that I kind of
Mhm.
forgot to mention. So it's kind of
Okay.
interesting because that used to be the first why back in
Mm.
the beginning of my starting the e-commerce because I really
Yeah.
wasn't passionate about jewelry.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, retiring my husband. That was always the why and making enough to cover at least like half of his salary. Because when he retires from shipping, he's not going to retire because he's so young. It's just going to
Mhm.
be retiring from shipping. So he's still going to make something. I think there is a lot to unpack with the money, but I've come a long way. I used to cry when we were making a budget, and he's like, "Why are you crying? It's just numbers." And I'm like, "This is so awful."
What was awful about it?
I think the fear of not having enough
Mhm.
and the facing the bills, like we were always fine, knock on wood. Like we were We always figured it out. We were always
Yeah.
in a good place, but there were times that were job changes and things
Mm-hmm.
that you had to budget a little stricter than other times, but it was never like we've always had food and a roof over our head and cars to drive. We've been in very blessed situations, but I think growing up, I had that scarcity mindset. But I've come a long way. I told him, I said, did you notice we did the budget without me even like getting upset or changing my
Yeah.
tone? So I think that's why money's kind of a little lower on the why because I've found
Mm-hmm.
other reasons why.
Sure. There's a couple of things you said earlier. The ones that stand out to me are I have a little bit of imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
a fear of success. That was one. The other one that I
Definitely.
heard that's probably more uh, disruptive or damaging, like troublesome than anything else you said is I'm a watcher.
Hmm. I never caught myself saying that because my mom always told me that. She was always like,
Mm,
"Oh, you used to go to school and you just watched the groups. You always watched. You stood back and then
yeah.
you made decisions."
Yeah.
And I noticed that with one of my daughters.
Mm, that's one heck of an identity declaration is
Yeah,
I'm a watcher.
interesting.
Hmm. And as you watch your daughter, having gone through your own lived experience with it, and now seeing it reflected back to you via your daughter, which is like the most humbling part of parenting, isn't it? You're like, oh,
Absolutely.
that's me. That's all me. Uh, has your sense of what that actually is changed?
I never thought of that as an identity. I just
Mm-hmm.
thought of it as something that I did, like more of a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with my daughter, so I have twins and I split them up in preschool. And one is like, she would talk to a cardboard cutout, like she'll do
Mm-hmm.
whatever. The
Mm-hmm.
other was in the same class for 2 years, same teacher, and she did not speak to the teacher at all. And then the
Mm-hmm.
teacher assistant, she finally warmed up to. She just didn't vibe with her. And she says, when I'm in kindergarten, I'll talk. And everybody tried to tell me something was wrong. She has this, she has that. She has to go to
Mm-hmm.
therapy. I'm like, no, she just is strong willed. She knows what she wants. She feels
Yep.
some sort of energy with this woman. And that's how she is. And now she's thriving in kindergarten. And I think seeing her watch the situation, and my son was really shy too. I never connected it to how I was. I think I related to my son and I told him, yeah, in middle school, I kind of had to move and join a new
Mm-hmm.
school and didn't have any friends. So I joined a friend group, but then it changed in high school because I kind of just joined a group just because.
Yeah.
And they were the safe group. Like I was kind of a little more confident than they were looking back. So that was like the safe place. And then I
Yep.
found my friends in high school. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever given it much thought, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. What's the benefit of being a watcher?
You don't have to fail. Like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to fail. But I
Yeah.
know like I know it's never failure because you learn something and you can like improve. But I think watching other people, now that I think about it, I've been watching other people in the Facebook group succeed and watching other people do the same program that I have access to that they're just doing the steps. That's all they're doing. And it's like, oh, well, if I just do the steps, then I'll be as successful as they are. But what if I'm not?
But what if you're not? Answer that question.
I think I would take it like personally as like I am a bad person. I wasted the money. I wasted my time.
What emotion does that bring up for you? I
Oh,
feel like I
I
can
could
see
like
the
cry right
emotion.
now.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional
Yeah.
person. I like
Oh, I
cry.
love that. It's beautiful. It's
Thank you.
beautiful.
I get
And
embarrassed sometimes because I'm like, why am I crying? But
yeah, you're just releasing the energy.
yeah,
Your body is wise.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that safety net, like if I just watch, I can get all the information. And then I know it's like, well, you're never going to have all the information. You're not going to know until you do.
Well, and even if you did have all the information, then what?
Then I'd have to do.
Yeah. Then you would still have to do,
I
right?
would still have to do, and I would still possibly not be as successful as I originally set my goals to be.
Sure.
And I know that if I don't do, I don't have the data. And so what if you don't make your goal? We didn't make our goal for like you have this information. Like if people aren't buying, then that's not what they want. So you pivot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I'm scared of also they're my ideas. It's like a piece of me and it's my creativity. And I always had trouble in art class. Like that creative outlet was always a real struggle for me. So if I put something out there that people don't want and don't resonate with, I'm like, oh, well, now I'm not as creative as I thought I was, but it just means that I just have to pivot.
So it sounds like the meaning that gets attributed to people not liking what you create is that they're rejecting you personally.
Personally, yeah. Which I know I have to like build a thick skin on because, it's the internet and it's.
Sure. Well, I don't know if it's thick skin or if it's solidifying your identity.
That's a good point.
Beyond the results. It sounds like at some point, because the other thing I heard you say is I'm a good student. And I don't think you said I'm an achiever, but that's kind of what I heard.
That's the vibe.
Okay,
yeah. I was
All
just
right.
talking to someone at work. Like I always put so much pressure on myself to do the extra credit.
Yes.
A B was like, oh,
like I'm offended.
Yes. Like how,
yes.
Okay, well, I didn't try hard enough. I'll try harder next time. And yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. The thing about our brains and our identifications, that statement of I am a watcher, it holds so much weight because the moment you try to take action, you actually make your brain wrong. And our brains don't like to be wrong. They like to be right. We collect evidence to support our own biases, our own ideas, our own identities, even if those identities are the very thing that's holding us back or preventing us from actually receiving the results we want to create. So, the reason I asked you what the benefits are of being a watcher is because there's something really powerful in that realization around I don't have to fail if I'm a watcher. And the beautiful thing about not wanting to fail is it points to a deeper belief that you know you are worthy and can create success. So that belief for you and anybody listening of like, I don't like to fail. The reason you don't like to fail is because you're not well practiced at failure, but it's also because you hold a standard of success in your own personal life.
That's a great way to look at it. I never flipped it that way. Yeah.
So when we can flip it that way, then we can ask a question of how do I create success faster?
Yeah.
And how would your brain answer that? If I was like, Katelyn, how could you create success faster?
Just do the work that I know what needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I really believe is important as we navigate this, because I really relate to this idea of I've got to be messy in front of people. And it's very vulnerable to bring ideas out. And I've had 3 or 4 businesses that went absolutely nowhere, right? Like I had great traction and then realized, oh, I don't want to be in online products and physical products. And what I encourage everyone to do if they resonate with your story and my story is create a home base of love. And what I mean by that is get your people. I'm a big fan of people. So the people who truly know you, they know you, know you, know you. They enroll them and be like, hey, I know you love me. Thank you so much for loving me. I am working on loving me even more. I'm working on matching your love for me at minimum and your acceptance of me. And I am about to do this thing that feels terrifying for me. It feels like I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I'm stepping out into the wild streets of the interwebs. Right. People are going to see my face. People are going to hear me talk. They're going to watch me fumble and bumble around in the beginning, right? Because the beginning is always messy. It's awkward. It's clunky, And I want to know that no matter what, I'll be safe with you. And most of them are going to be like, of course.
Of course.
Like,
Yeah.
of course, we love you. Right. And so when like Susie Q on the interweb tells you that you suck, you can go back to your home base of love and be like, Susie Q said I suck. And they're going to be like, Susie Q doesn't even know you. We love you. Come on, let's put the phone down. Let's let it go. But sometimes when we're working on developing our personal identity and who we are, it's so helpful to have that home base because then you have this sort of space between who you are in your real life and then who you are in business.
Hmm.
And the values are the same. The integrity is going to be the same. The quality is going to be the same, right? Humans like you deliver some of the best services because you care so much, like I said,
Yeah.
you have a set standard of success already, but conceptualizing it that way
Mm-hmm.
of like, I have a safe space to where when I need a break from taking the blows and redeveloping my identity, I can go to these safe places and I can set up a lunch with a friend. I can go to a yoga class or an exercise class with my husband. I
Right.
have this place to restore my spirit and then get back to it.
I love that. I love that. And I'm immediately thinking about my best friend who I met in one of these programs. We
Mm-hmm.
have weekly accountability calls, and she has
Beautiful.
a product-based business. And she actually texted me the first time she texted me with her first negative review. She kind
Yeah,
of took it hard.
for
And I
sure.
talked her through it. And then the next text was like, hey, look at this. Isn't she funny? Like, what should I do? What do you think? Should I ignore it? Should I be snarky? Like, this is
Heck
hilarious.
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
it was awesome.
It's giving everyone the freedom we want for ourselves.
Yeah.
There's tons of products I don't like. And
Right.
it has nothing to do with the founder. Like,
Right.
I don't even know the founder, right? It's
Right.
like, they're just not for me. And
And
they're
they might work
probably
for someone else.
exactly, exactly. And I really believe that's why there's so many people who are getting into businesses because there's so much more diversity that's needed for
Mhm.
consumers. Is
Totally.
like we're so, thank goodness, beyond the age of having one option or two options for things. It's like, oh, I can really find those products, those people, those mentors, those coaches that support the uniqueness of me and know how to
Yes.
communicate in a way that I can receive it, understand it, integrate it, and apply it.
Yeah. So that's a really good way to like let it. And some part of me like was scared of starting the podcast because of that. And I just did
Mm-hmm.
it. I was just
Yep.
like, one day I'm like, it's not going to get easier.
Mm-hmm.
So just start it. And now I'm like, oh, okay. What am I going to talk about this week? Because I don't batch. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I love, I'm like, I'll figure it out. And I just riff and it comes out great. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I found my way over that hurdle. Like that was scary at one point. Finding out I was having twins was scary at one point. Figured that out.
So what you're telling me in all of this is that maybe that idea and the identity of I'm a watcher is not actually accurate anymore.
Hmm. It's probably not.
Like I just heard so much evidence for the contrary, the opposite of like, I actually take action and I dive in when I'm met with something that's uncomfortable or challenging. And I go learn how to figure it out. And I'm proactive. So you knew you were going to start a business. You knew this time period was coming. So you started learning. So
Mhm.
you don't wait for tragedy to force you or pain to force you into action, which is great. You're very proactive. So how do you handle failure based on the evidence that you have in your own life?
I mean, I take what I could that worked out from it. And
Mm-hmm.
then what didn't work out, I pivot and learn from it and try again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It is interesting how I was holding on to that.
So we've been I've known her for 36 minutes, okay?
Yes.
And my experience of you, Katelyn, is that you actually have a really unfair advantage in that you're super integrated with your creativity and your structure. So
Thank you.
it seems like you've got a really great balance of I can do the logical and rational and structure and strategy, which we would call like the masculine. And I can also do the creative and the connection and the intuitive and the trusting and the faith of the feminine and the nurturing.
That's really sweet to hear.
There's one more thing that you brought up that I want to touch on before we wrap. And
Yeah.
that is, tell me what you think imposter syndrome is.
I mean, in my experience, I feel like the fear of success and the fear of failure kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as that person. They're doing it better than me. They've been doing it longer. So of course they're better than me. I think in terms of imposter syndrome, it's always going to be the comparison to that next person that is ahead of me. And that was a really roundabout answer. I guess I don't know what the answer is. I think it's just that like comparison and like I'm not as good as that person.
Your answer was great. It's how I think most people or many people would conceptualize imposter syndrome is that I am not as good as I could be or should be or need to be for X, Y, or Z, right? This person, this level of success, this whatever, somebody's going to figure out that I'm not legit. Somebody's going to figure out that I'm
That's
not
it.
right.
That's
like
it right
that
there.
thing.
I feel like almost the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain.
Yes.
Like I'm not like who am I? Who am I
Yes.
to help other people? And it's like, no, I'm a wife of a mariner for 11 years. Like I have a lot of experience.
The real imposter syndrome is disregarding our actual qualifications, pretending, convincing ourselves, moving as if we aren't as qualified, impactful, creative, effective, helpful, successful as we really are. To me, that's the most crippling imposter syndrome.
Agreed, completely.
Is that like, no, actually, you're almost at 20 years of experience with this. And lived experience, not 20 years of I've been reading about this.
Well, and my dad worked for Arcos, so I actually grew up with it. And he was a chief mate. We were writing letters to each other. We didn't have email and phone.
Yep.
And
So let's
anyway.
say 30 years.
Yeah.
If we're not exaggerating, right? That's not even an exaggeration. So you've known it from daughter perspective. You've known it from girlfriend perspective. You've known it from wife perspective. You've known it from mother perspective.
Yeah.
And you have the experience in healing your own stuff within the space from all those perspectives.
Absolutely.
So really what you're learning now is marketing and sales. You as a human are probably overqualified, right? Like for most positions, they're like, we want 3 to 5 years experience. You're like, well, I have 30.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with, I just have to be confident in that I have something to offer because there's other people that don't have that level of experience.
Sure. And the distinction that I love to share on, and I've shared this on a couple episodes, is the distinction between self-worth and confidence. So confidence is the external. If I bring you somebody and she's familiar with what you teach, familiar with what your life experience, she shares similar life experiences, could you help her? How confident do you feel that you could help her if she's coachable?
I'm pretty confident. Like I could help her with something in her life.
Like scale from 1 to 10, 10 being totally confident.
Probably an 8.
Yeah. Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
An 8.
Yeah.
Your worth is internal. Your worth is, even if I don't get her the results, even if she decides she wants to leave and wants a refund, or scarier yet, if she goes and tells 20 people that I'm the best thing that's ever happened to her in her life, and then 20 people want to pay me $5,000 to help them with their stuff, am I okay?
Yeah.
How's my worth then?
Yeah, I think then I start to panic.
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it is.
So there's one question I want to go back to, and then we'll wrap. Yeah. That question is, I asked you why you're starting this business, why you must do this business. Do any new answers come to you?
I'd like my experiences to benefit someone else, and I'd like to leave a mark and know that I had a ripple effect, and also making enough to just not have my kids worry. Yeah.
Have you ever signed up for something you knew you were going to totally, completely fail at?
Oh, probably.
Like what?
Well, I don't think I signed up for anything knowing I was going to fail. I think I signed up for things hoping I wouldn't.
Okay.
But then I think I knew in some negative self-talk oh, well, you aren't a completer. Like you're going to abandon this. Just
Oh,
like,
that's another identity we get to pull out of there.
yeah.
I am not a completer. That is gold. So
Yeah.
catch those as you go
Yeah.
forward in the world. Catch those. And one of the things that I suggest everybody do if they notice this about themselves, and you too, is film yourself talking or record yourself talking about everyday situations and pull those things out. Catch those declarations, catch those claims that you hold as true and pull them out and go,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a completer. The thing that I was getting at with, do you have any new reasons why? And have you ever signed up for anything knowing you were going to fail? Is because one, you said, I don't think I've ever signed up for anything knowing I was going to fail. I just hoped that I wouldn't. So somewhere deep down, your truth is, I signed up to be in business because I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm. That never crossed my mind.
So we, as humans, we actually don't do this.
Yeah. I
Unless
see
it's
where you're going. Yeah.
unless it's an intentional thing of, okay, I'm going to collect failures.
Yeah.
For the most part, we're signing up for something that somewhere deep down, even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, AKA imposter syndrome, we know I can do this. Yeah.
It's interesting that that thought never occurred to my mind. Like, why would I sign up for something knowing I couldn't do it? I wouldn't. Like,
You
of
wouldn't.
course I wouldn't.
We wouldn't.
So no,
Yeah.
having that in the back of my head, I think is really helpful because there's a flip side of that. Well, we call it our little voice in our head. And I'm like, but there's an ideal voice too. So if I listen to my ideal voice, then it's like, well, you can do this. And then the little voice
Yep.
has to sit in the back seat. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you haven't done it before. So why would you do it now? It's like, well,
Yeah.
we can move forward.
Because I can.
Because I can. We can
Because
move
I can.
forward.
Yeah. And that little voice is really, and you probably know this, but the little voice is just trying to keep you in the familiarity.
Absolutely. Just
You
keeping me
know?
safe.
Yeah. She's just keeping you in, and I don't even really like the word safe because it's not.
Well,
Like,
it's her
imagine,
idea of safe, what
yeah,
she thinks safe is.
it's what she believes maybe safety is, but
But
it's
I
more
like
so,
familiarity.
yeah, it's more so familiarity. Because imagine you get to 85 years old and you never action any of this.
That would be really sad.
It would be so sad. It probably wouldn't be that great for your mental health
No.
or your self-concept.
Which is why I keep going. There's been days where I'm like, I'm
Exactly.
throwing it all in the towel. I'm going to work full
Yes.
time at the school. Like, screw it. And then
Yes.
something happens. I get like an Instagram message like, thank God I found your podcast. And I'm like, wow,
Yes.
it's really nice to
Exactly.
hear.
Yes. And just for the record, all of myself included, all of my friends who are entrepreneurs and my colleagues who are entrepreneurs, at least once every 18 months, we consider getting a full-time job.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
It's like, at least we're like, I'm ready to quit. I think as starting entrepreneurs, sometimes our brain makes it mean like, am I built for this? Can I do this? Does that mean it's supposed to be for me? Entrepreneurship, I think of it was in the context of sport. And sport is like, you win, you lose. You got to know how to do both effectively. You got a strategy. You're going to give it your best effort, and you got to have the universe on your side too. There's so many things that are happening that are beyond your control, no matter if your effort is a level 10. And you're going to want to quit, but you keep going. Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your help. Your way of putting things is really helpful to digest.
Yeah, my pleasure. Is there anything else?
No, I'm excited to tackle my stuff.
Awesome. As we complete this episode, I would love to know your insights, takeaways, and feedback. You can message me on Instagram at Katelyn Rojano or send them via email to katie@katelynrojano.com. Any products or digital downloads I mentioned can be found via the link in my Instagram bio. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share it with at least one friend and leave a 5-star review so we can get these impactful dialogues into the lives of even more people. I would also like to thank my guest for their vulnerability and generosity in allowing us to learn from them and grow alongside them. Until next time, friends, let's go beyond.